Hey there, Amanda from the Happy Homestead. Today I want to show you how to make your own homemade pumpkin spice creamer. Now, fall is coming. At the time I'm filming this, it's not quite the first day of fall yet, but it is very close. And let's face it, pumpkin spice coffees and lattes and iced pumpkin spice, they are good. Back in the day when I didn't really think about those kinds of things as far as what was in them, I would probably get one every day, and oh my gosh, I cringe to think about that now because I looked it up, and so I wanted to show you. A grande at your favorite local coffee place is 390 calories, 14 grams of fat, 9 of which are saturated, 52 grams of carbs, 50 grams of sugar. Yeah, that's it. So that is so not good. Think about that. And I'll be honest, I actually bought one. I bought a pumpkin spice latte last week and I cannot remember why. I think, you know, our life's pretty crazy and hectic, very much so at days. And so I think I was just trying to get somewhere and I wanted to get one. And so I did. I allowed myself one day a week to like eat out, do something, right? And that was it. And let me tell you, the day I had that, immediately within an hour after being done, I had the worst headache. It was so much sugar. It didn't even taste anything like pumpkin or pumpkin spice. It was just sugar and preservatives and artificial flavoring and ugh. Anyway, so now I'm determined to make my own and I want to share that with you. It's really not hard. I've looked up a few recipes. I've done this before last year in the past. I just hadn't done it yet this year. And so I'm going to take you along and we'll do it together. There's two ways to accomplish this, one of which is much easier and the other one a little bit more gratifying. And that's in regards to the pumpkin. So the easy way is to actually go get a can of organic canned pumpkin. And we're actually going to use real pumpkin. What a novelty, right? Real pumpkin in your pumpkin spice creamer. You're not going to use the whole can, mind you, but go get a can. It's easy to find this time of year and it's not an expensive purchase by any means. Now, make sure you buy the organic pumpkin puree and not the pumpkin pie puree because that already has the spices in it, which would normally be okay, but it also has all of the sugars in it. So pumpkin pie puree, or you can do what I'm going to try to do today, which is roast your own pumpkin. I have a bunch of squash here. So you can use butternut squash, right? Butternut is often a good replacement for pumpkin in recipes. They have similar texture and flavor profiles. This is another type of butternut that I grew. Believe it or not, this is a pumpkin. I have to go find the name, but I got the seeds from Baker Creek Seeds, and this is a machata variety, which is much more resistant to squash bugs, which is all I did this year and had wild success with machata varieties. So this was one of our pumpkins. I'm gonna cut this baby open, roast it, let it cool, and then puree it, maybe in the food processor or an immersion blender. And then we'll start making our pumpkin spice creamer, which is also gonna have spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and then we're gonna use actual real organic maple syrup as our sweetener. And this is going to be up to you as far as how much you want. I'm not going to be using a lot because I don't want it overly sweet, but it's going to add a really great depth of flavor, right? The maple flavor within your iced latte or latte. So let's first cut this puppy open and get it in the oven. I'm going to turn my oven to 375 and get it preheated. Okay, so let's start cutting this open. I went and found the seeds from Baker Creek. It is the Dickinson pumpkin, and I'll show the picture because there's not really anything on the seed packet, but it grew quite well. And so far I've gotten 2 pumpkins off of the plants, and I've got, I think, 2 more growing. So this is like literally you're seeing the first time even I'm opening this, and I'm hoping for the sake of the video, guys, I hope this works. Oh, look how pretty that is. Oh my gosh, that looks great. All right, so I use a melon baller in my compost bucket to help get the flesh, or the seeds and the seed flesh out. I just kind of scoop it out. I may save some seeds. I'm not going to save them from this pumpkin, because you really want to save it from like the best, most beautiful, perfectly ripe pumpkin. And this was the first one from my plant. And I have another one that looks even better. But because I harvested this one first, that's why I'm using this one first today. So I'm just going to get all these seeds out. And when you're roasting, and this goes really for any kind of pumpkin or winter squash, all you're doing, I mean, there's probably tons of ways to do it, but the easiest way I know of is to literally do what I'm doing, right? So cut it in half, scoop it out. I've got a cookie sheet here with a piece of parchment paper. I'm not putting any salt, any pepper, nothing. And I'm just gonna turn it over on the parchment paper like this. And so what happens, I'm gonna roast it for probably about 45 minutes. And it creates almost like a steam pocket in here, and it really gets the flesh nice and soft. So I'm gonna get this in the oven. All right, oven is preheated, so I'm gonna throw this in. And I am going to set my timer for 45 minutes. And start. So our pumpkin is cooked and cooled to touch. So what I'm gonna do is start scooping out some of the puree here. Look at the beautiful color. I mean, the color is gorgeous. This is the first time I've grown this type of pumpkin. So obviously it's the first time I'm cooking with it, partaking of it. It almost kind of looks like spaghetti squash a little bit with how stringy it is. So I am going to use my immersion blender to really help puree this up. And remember, you can skip this whole thing if you decide to just use a can of organic pumpkin puree. But I'm gonna be pureeing this whole thing, measuring out a half a cup for our creamer, and then the rest of it I'm gonna put into a container, weigh it. I'm gonna try to weigh it out in, I think it's like 15 or 16 ounces, whatever a normal can of pumpkin is. I think it's 15 or 16 ounces. And that way, when I am ready to go make a pie, I have my already weighed out puree ready to go. And I'll just keep it in the freezer, and then I can thaw it when I need it to make our own pumpkin pie. So this works for any type of really like orange fleshed squash. Like I said, I think butternut is gonna be your best replacement if you've ever had kind of like a squash pie. It's a southern thing. It's usually made with butternut squash. And it uses a lot of the same spices and seasonings that a pumpkin pie would. So you could totally do butternut squash with this as well. Acorn may work. I think acorn actually would be perfectly fine. You just have to see like how the flavor turns out, if you need a little more sweetener or not. And the fact that you're adding real pumpkin puree in this, I mean, think of like you're adding nutritional benefit to your creamer here. Certainly some vitamins and some fiber. All right, so let me puree this up first. You could do this like what I'm doing with an immersion blender. You can do this with a high-speed blender or a food processor, your choice. Looks pretty good. Okay, look at that. It's like real pumpkin puree. I love the color. It is so beautiful. All right, so we're gonna measure out a 1/2 cup. And I'm gonna be making my creamer in this quart size mason jar. So I'm literally just gonna throw everything in that jar, and then I'll use the immersion blender to kind of whip it up too. So about a 1/2 cup. Okay. And then we're gonna weigh the rest of this. We're gonna have more than 16 ounces here. And that is okay, because then whatever is left over, I could actually use to make more creamer when this quart is done. Okay. That is 16 ounces. So I am gonna freeze that, and then I'll use that to make our pumpkin pie this fall. And then I can still see we have some left. So I will weigh that out. I know it's not gonna be a full 16 ounces, but as you can see, I'll probably be able to make 2 more batches of the creamer. So I'll keep that either in the freezer or the fridge. Package that up later. Now the fun part, we actually get to make our creamer. Remember, you can just use a 1/2 cup of canned pumpkin puree if you don't want to roast your own pumpkin. But I wanted to show you how to do that, right? So you can buy a pumpkin at the store. It doesn't have to be a sugar pumpkin, right? All pumpkins are edible. Some of them have higher sugar content than others. So you know, now you know how to do that yourself. I do the same thing, by the way, with spaghetti squash. That's what we're having for dinner tonight. I do the same thing. I cut it in half. I'll scoop the seeds out, place it flat down on a parchment lined cookie sheet, and bake it between 45 minutes to an hour, and then obviously string it out with a fork. So that is how I roast all of my winter squash. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that I am using an organic, it's Organic Valley, 1/2 and 1/2 for this creamer today. So the beauty of this recipe is you can cater it and customize it to you. If you are dairy free, then I would recommend using, you know, a dairy creamer like almond milk or cashew milk. I'll tell you, if you go buy a dairy creamer in the store, it's gonna taste great, it's dairy free. However, dairy-free creamer, did I say that? However, if you look at the ingredients, there's gonna be a lot of preservatives. I used to do a lot of almond milk and nut milks, and then I stopped buying them because the ingredient list really wasn't that great. What I would recommend is you make your own. So you can make your own almond milk or cashew milk. Cashew milk is gonna give you a much creamier texture, more like a 1/2 and 1/2, whereas almond milk is a little bit more thin. But use what works for you. Okay, so we have our 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree. I'm gonna add 2 cups of our 1/2 and 1/2 here. then we're gonna add our spices and our sweetener. So you can, again, customize this to what you like. I have pumpkin pie spice, and you might have that in your pantry also. If you were to do pumpkin pie spice, I would do 2 full tablespoons within this quart. But again, adjust that to your taste buds. Or you can kind of customize it however you want. You can just do some ground cinnamon along with some nutmeg and cloves. Pumpkin pie spice might have a couple of more different things other than these 3. For this batch, I'm gonna actually do it with these rather than the pumpkin pie spice, and then maybe next time I'll do this. So again, pumpkin pie spice, 2 tablespoons. Since I'm going to mix and match here a little bit, for cinnamon, I am going to do a full tablespoon. This is just organic ground cinnamon. And I am gonna do 1 teaspoon of ground clove. That's a half. That's 1. And then I've got nutmeg here. I wanted to show you the nutmeg. You can buy ground nutmeg, but this is much better. I buy nutmeg in the whole form. It's like these little, kind of like, I don't know, not acorns, but you know, bigger, like a really big almond or something. And that is nutmeg. And so what I do is and it lasts forever, by the way, in your pantry. I will take one of the nuts. Is it a nut? I don't know, we're gonna call it a nut. I will take one and then I use a microplane grater and then just go back and forth over, you know, the bowl, the vessel, the jar, and get freshly ground nutmeg. Now, guys, seriously, this is so simple, so easy, and you're like, really? No, really. Fresh nutmeg is so good. I don't have ground nutmeg in our spice cabinet in our pantry at all in this house. I do have ground cloves, even though I use fresh cloves too, but this just makes it's so easy to grind up yourself into your recipes. So buy some whole nutmeg, buy a microplane grater, and get busy. All right, so I'm gonna put some freshly ground nutmeg in it. Now, obviously doing it this way, I'm not measuring it out. But if I were to measure, right, if you're using previously ground nutmeg, I would do about a half a teaspoon. If you can see that in there. Oh, it smells so good. And so that's all I'm gonna do. And now our sweetener. Now remember I said that we are using organic maple syrup. And I am gonna do 2 to 3 tablespoons for this entire quart. And I'm just gonna eyeball it here. 1, 2, 3. And that way you are able to control the sugar. Now, if you remember, I think it was 50 grams of sugar in that pumpkin spice latte, that grande, whereas 2 tablespoons of this is 24 grams sugar. So I did 3, so what's that, 36 grams sugar for this entire quart. This entire quart is gonna last you more than 1 coffee. So this has less sugar, and it's not a highly processed, overly processed sugar, right? We're using natural maple syrup. So I am now going to immersion blend this, and I wanna do it carefully because half and half has cream in it. I don't want this to become like a whipped cream texture. So I'm pulsing it. Again, you can do this in a blender too, guys. I'm trying to dirty as little as possible. I'm just making sure I got all my pumpkin puree blended in. I think I do. All right. And that's it. Just made some pumpkin spice creamer. I'm gonna lick this thing because I really want to taste it. It's really good. I have some coffee in the fridge from yesterday, iced already, like just cold. I am going to make an iced latte. Let's do that. All right, so I got myself a glass of ice and I thought, let's use the fancy glasses. Why not? So, because they never get used, right? Like really. So I've got ice and I'm gonna add my coffee and my creamer. All right, so I've got my coffee in here. It's just a plastic container that I've kept in the fridge, left over. And carefully pour some of that in. And I already got a lid on my creamer. I'm just gonna do a shake quick and add a little bit of this in. There we go. All right, let's try it. This is real time. I haven't tried this sip yet. It's good. It's not nearly as sweet, obviously, as what you would find at a coffee shop, but it is good. If I wanted to sweeten it, I don't know that I would add any more maple syrup. I try to be very careful of sugar anyway. But you could add a little stevia. Stevia would help. But yeah, it is really good. I'm so excited to have made this. So I hope you'll try it. I mean, think about what is in those syrups in those coffee shops, because that's what it is. It is a syrup, a flavored syrup. Whereas this is real ingredients with some actual fiber and vitamin A and I think vitamin K from the pumpkin. So try it out. Let me know what you think. Happy fall, y'all. Enjoy your pumpkin spice latte, your pumpkin spice creamers. Stay healthy, stay well. See you next time.